Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter, metaphysical teacher, spiritual life and business coach, published author, and the high priestess of the LightWeb, a spiritual technology that will change your life. This is the place to be to talk everything under the LightWeb, from consciousness, relationships, to money, to spiritual business, and everything in between. Hi, this is Joanna Hunter for Into the LightWeb podcast. I am here with the $1 Million Lab series, and I am joined by the gorgeous Shameca Tankerson. How are you? Come and say hi and tell people what it is that you do in the world.
I am doing incredible, and I'm super excited to be here with you, Joanna. What in the world is it that I do? What I'm passionate about is helping women to own their value in the world. And what I'm known for is helping people rapidly accelerate their income and use their businesses as the vehicle to shift their family's wealth code and wealth trajectory for future generations.
Oh, so excited. I love that. What has been your entrepreneurial journey? How did you get started in business yourself? Is it that you've always been an entrepreneur, or is it something that came later in life? How has that unfolded for you?
Oh my gosh, I've always been an entrepreneur. In fact, it runs deeply in my family. My great-great-grandfather found out this was a sharecropper coming out of slavery. So there has been an entrepreneurial thread. I often say you can't throw a rock in my family without finding someone who is self-employed or a business owner. I actually started, though, as a salesperson. So self-employed as a salesperson, where I was commission-based. So for me, that's self-employed, because if you don't sell something, you don't make any money.
You don't make any money, right? And it's a real sink or swim job.
Absolutely. So I started in sales when I was 19 years old. And then I moved into the real estate industry. And of course, in the United States, in all over the United States, we had the real estate bust in 2008. So everything that I had built to that point, my incredible, nice houses and cars and the six-figure business that I had built, just totally lost everything. And that was pretty devastating. And so I've been on this journey since then of rebuilding my certainty, my confidence, my self-worth, my own value, and to come back to that. And so that's kind of how I got here. Is I've been an entrepreneur, lost everything, struggled for more than a decade to try to figure things out again. And most of that was internal work. I realize that now, right? I thought it was strategy.
So when you lost everything, is, looking back in hindsight, because hindsight is a wonderful thing, right?
Absolutely.
But we could have done with that at the time. But looking back, did you have a lot of maybe self-worth, ideology that you had all tied up in your stuff? And then of course, Absolutely. 2008 happens. It's this wipeout. And suddenly we're having this dark night of the soul by the signs of things.
So much.
We're laughing, but it's knowing laughter here.
Exactly. It was a tough journey.
Yes,
I actually was a teen mom. So I had a child at 16. Mm-hmm. And, before that, people held me as a very promising individual. People held me as, you're going to do amazing things in the world. And once I got pregnant, it was oh, life derails. You got to do this. You get don't go to college. I was what just happened to my life? Why are people guiding me this way? And so I had this inner contract with myself that I'm going to show them, I'm going to prove. So I lived my life with this proving energy of showing everybody how successful I can be. So it was very driven and very go, 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 go. I mean, so much so I do actually have multiple degrees. When I got those degrees, I didn't even walk across. I didn't do graduation. What do they call it where you're at?
Yeah, graduation as well. You do the walk, your graduation walk, isn't it?
So I didn't do graduation. I just said, hey, give me my degrees. I don't need to walk across the stage. I just give me the paper. I have things to do. I have stuff to prove. And so I had this proving energy inside of me that I held inside of the things that I bought, my big old house and my nice cars, and the fact that I was a business owner and I looked successful to everyone. And so when that disappeared, so did my confidence, my self-worth. I was ashamed. So there was a theme of shame and unworthiness that came up. And so even though I was running around saying that I wanted clients and I was rebuilding my business, subconsciously, I didn't feel worthy of the clients.
That's a huge thing. And it's something that really resonates with me. So I built 4 6-figure businesses, and then I had them all at the same time, and then I worked in them all. So we know that story doesn't end well. So I didn't have a 2008 recession, but 2008 was rough for me too, because that's when the year that I collapsed at home with multiple organ failure from basically massive, humongous burnout that nearly took me out. And suddenly I couldn't work in the way that I'd worked before, lost everything, you know, family end up living on welfare, things like that, right? And it was, I remember, you know, that all of my achievements, my self-worth was tied. As long as I was achieving, I was worthy.
Yes.
And
so we have a similar story. I
yeah.
actually ended up in the welfare office too. Drove my Mercedes there, by the way. And they were like, ma'am, we'd love to
class, lady.
Yeah, we'd love to help you. And this system was built for people like you. Because I'm like crying. I feel so ashamed. Like I didn't feel like I belonged, but of course I belonged. I couldn't feed my babies. So I'm in the welfare office trying to get support. And they're like, we can help you, but first you have to sell your car. So that was the first thing that had to, like the last thing that I was holding on to that had to go. So it was literally stripped of everything. And a part of me felt like I was stripped of my dignity and my just my value, my self-value, how I saw myself.
When you look back at that now in hindsight, do you feel like, because I have a really strong kind of like inner feeling now that I had to be stripped of everything so that I could rebuild everything in a new image, in a new thing. Like I had to build it from a better, like I built it from quite a bad energy base, you know, of what I feel like that very hustly culture that I was part of. I was like, I was so proud of my hustle. Now I'm like, hustle is for people who don't know how to flow.
Yes, so me. I'm like, nope, not doing that. Don't want to work.
No, exactly. Like this girl's got standards. Like, no, you know. So it's you know, it's such a different energy. But I feel like I was kind of stripped so bare of everything so that I would have an opportunity, although at the time it didn't feel like an opportunity. It just felt like a long, dark night of the soul, and it was difficult and it was hard. But now I can see that it was so that I could rebuild everything in a more positive energy, and that I could actually have my wealth and enjoy it. Because in the past, what it was the wealth was coming in, but it was coming in, going out as fast. And I was just on this hamster wheel of life, constantly running for, I don't know what, but I was just constantly chasing for the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And of course, I think I was chasing really for my self-worth, because it was only tied to as long as I was achieving. That all being gone, it allowed something new to be built in its place, which has been an extraordinary journey of, you know, ending up here where I am now, which is coaching.
Yeah. I think the journey is similar for me. When I look back at it in hindsight, I realize that everything that I've been through has prepared me for the who that I am today, the leadership that I have. I'm often moved to tears when I'm supporting and working with clients, because they'll have things that come up and I'm like, oh my gosh, like literally I can tell you exactly what that feels like and give you an example of how to walk through it, because I've been through it. Now going through it, it wasn't fun, but I wouldn't trade who I am today. I am so sure of myself and certain, and I'm unwavering in my standards and my belief and my certainty. And I wasn't then. Like one little thing could have made me wobble. I was always on almost like a panic state. I remember now that you're talking, in those days, even though I was making decent money for most people, I worked really hard for it. I was barely at multiple 6 figures, but I remember I used to grind my teeth like my jaw
Oh,
would get.
I had to wear a guard as well. I wore a guard because I used
Yes,
to grind my teeth so much.
that
And
just
my
came back to my remembrance right now. So I was living this heightened fight or flight kind of existence. And
exactly.
now everything is amazing and incredible. I mean, life happens, but the flow of it and the ease and just what I experience of my life now, it's so much easier and there's so much more. I'm so much more an open channel. My capacity to receive is much, much greater. So here I was thinking I was high on the hog, buying all the things with my multiple six-figure business. And now I'm running a multiple seven-figure business and I'm not working nearly as hard as I was working then.
I know. Does that not like absolutely mess with your brain?
It
Because like
blows.
I know, like I'm not a multiple seven figures, but I know it messes with my brain how I work less now than when I earned much less, but I I so put those hours in the way that I
Exactly.
did it before.
It's actually it's like a phenomenon, right? I'm like, okay, there's some magic here. And I try to come up with like steps and stuff. And I'm like, there's just a part of it where you just surrender and you let go. And it's like, just bring it all. Because what I realize now is I was trying to do everything in my own power. I wasn't co-creating with God. I wasn't co-creating with spirit.
Mm,
That's
yes.
the magic.
That's why you were so burnt out, right? As well, because I was like super burnt out. That's why we're grinding the teeth. That's why we're doing all that gnarly stuff, because we're trying to push the boulder up the hill under our own steam. And
Yes.
there's no wind at our back helping us along, right? Like in the endeavor. And that was the big thing for me, like the surrender into that flow and alive. And do you know a big piece for me? Like I've done like you, tried to deconstruct it into processes and all the things, right? But really, as far as I have got with that conversation with myself and me, myself, and I, is just really feeling that it's the surrender, and but the biggest piece has been the allowing. I
Mhm.
held in my life like that before, like so tight, like it was a white knuckle ride, it was like every step of the way. And then just breathing and
Mhm.
relaxing and leaning in and not having to micromanage and control every tiny little piece, just surrendering to that thought that, you know what, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay no matter what. I'm going to be okay. I can lean in here.
Yeah, I would add one, probably two things to that, but one would be trust, which is you're kind of alluding to that,
Huge,
right? This
huge.
trust that before I thought it was all going to go away anyway. It was self-fulfilling prophecy. I was working so hard, like for the next, for the next, for the next. And now what I do to create revenue, clients, and just the life that I want to live is the same surrender to the air and the breath that fills my lungs every day. It's just a release of, I don't think about it. It's so easy. I'm never like, oh my gosh, what if I don't have clients? Oh my gosh. It's just this knowing, this
Yeah,
trust that I'm fully supported. I'll always be taken care of. And whatever that looks like, I'm so good with it.
I
So good.
love that. I love that. Did you find making that transition into the way that you work now, did you find that like I found for me personally, one of the hardest things has been to break the habit of hustling,
Mhm.
because there's that little voice that says, you need to be doing da, 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 da. And it's like, shh,
Yep.
we're trusting the divine right now. And it's like, but you, and you're like, shh, and I had to find myself doing that many times. It's like that voice rarely visits now, but in the past, it was like a full on, I'm having two conversations here, like the one that I'm having with the people, the one that I'm having in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been on this journey for 12 years, going on
Mhm.
13 years now. So I've had some practice at becoming me now, breaking the
I
habit
love
of being my older self. And now it's something that I really support clients with because the people who show up in my world are very driven. And so we get to play these games. And so it still shows up for me because it's a very huge part of who I am. Even if you look at like my gene keys, my human design, my disc profile. It's all about doing energy. It's who I am by design. However, it is not the strategy that serves me most in creation and living out my purpose. Unhealthy me leans more on that than the magic of who I am and what my purpose is. And so when it comes up now, which it, like you said, it comes up less and less, but I see it and I giggle.
Yes, you're aware now. The awareness is there. Yes.
And so there's just a breathing into it. Like there's nothing more you need to do. You've done all the things. And now, and you've decided that this is what it's going to look like. And so now we just allow those things to work. And it is a dance. Because somehow I feel like in my humanness, I feel like I can literally control life. There is no control in life. There's no controlling life. Who are we fooling? So
I find that it's a paradox though, because the moment we accept that there is no control in life, there is control in life, which is the craziest, right? And another mind bender, in the same ilk of working less and earning more. Like what?
Yeah. And so I just try to lean into that as much as possible. When I just shared this with someone last week, when I feel the urge to go do, then I do not. When something inside of me is like, you got to go, you should be, anytime it comes up like that, I'm like, think I'm going to go watch some Netflix. I just totally unplug and just relax.
And that, do you know what? I think that piece in itself takes next level discipline to do that, because we so often give in to that voice that's like pushing. But that is really how, in my world, we call it source and void. And that's how we connect to the void. And the void is literally what robs us and keeps us broke. And source is what gives us and fulfills us and sustains us in life. And it does take a lot of discipline, because the conditioning of society is, if the voice tells you to go do, you go do.
Yes.
Right? Because that's how you get ahead, right? We're all told that, do this, do that, and that's how you're going to get ahead. And
yeah, work, fix yourself, focus on what's broken, make that better. Yes. No, none of that.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. I love it. This is it. This is the surrender. And so tell us how your business built. Like, how did you begin to build your business? Because we've got this very different, we got this kind of almost like quite hustle culture. Everything goes away. You're like, oh my God, self-esteem, everything, it's all wrapped up in there. We're at the welfare office. They're like, sell your Mercedes. You're like, what? And where do we go from there? Like, how do we start building, and how did you end up in the online world? Because maybe you were already a little bit, I was already,
had a website.
I had brick and mortar businesses, but I had a little bit in the online world because I had a mailing list and things like that. So it wasn't alien to me, but it certainly wasn't where I was hanging my hat.
Yeah, definitely. So similar situation for me. So I thought, okay, I need to rebuild this business. And I actually had come across a person that I knew in the brick and mortar offline world, who was sharing this message about someone who was doing something called, it was like a blog challenge. And so I'm like, oh, let me see what that is. And so I get on this person's list because I don't really know much about blogging. And I know I used to write articles, my real estate business, I would write articles. And
right. Okay. Yeah.
On my website, but I don't think we really called it blogging then, to telling how old I am now.
I'll just gloss over that bit.
And so I'm like, oh, let me see what this is. And they were like, you write and you do all this stuff and people find you. And I'm like, this is great. So from that introduction to this world, this person was going to be speaking at an event, and she had free tickets where you just had to pay $47 or $97. Now, granted, remember, I'm in this welfare office situation still.
Okay, so it was a real decision, the
$97.
How am I going to do this?
Yes. So, so I call her and I beg her for this ticket because I look up this guy and he's like, the event's $3,000 and he's the greatest thing in internet marketing. And I'm like, this is what I need to learn. This is the holy grail that's going to get me from where I am. Now, I'm still in doing energy. I'm still pushing, driving. I'm still kind of there. And so she ends up sending me a message, an email, and gives me the ticket. And I am able to scrape up the $97. I sleep on my cousin's couch who lives in Irvine, which was about a 15-20 minute drive from the hotel, which was in Newport Beach, which is a really posh area right in front of the ocean. And I remember driving there in my little beat up, because I had to give away my Mercedes. So now I have this like Cadillac something big blue car that I'm driving down PCH, which is a really beautiful stretch that runs across the Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
And I see a parking meter. And so I pull over. This is how desperate I am with money right now. I pull over to calculate whether it's cheaper for me to park in front of the parking meter and walk around into the hotel or park at valet, which was $26 a day.
Okay.
So it's a 4-day event and I'm doing the calculations. And so I just decide, okay, I'm just going to park in valet because it looks like that's going to be cheaper. So I pull my little jalopy into the valet. So embarrassed because everybody's got clean, nice luxury vehicles. And here I am, trying to pretend the most that I belong here. And I go into this event and my mind is blown about what you can do on the internet with marketing. And I learn a few concepts from this guy who, by the way, is still one of my mentors today.
Amazing.
He's been on this journey with me for a long time. So in his event, he goes, do whatever you can do. If you have to get up and go implement, go implement. So of course I'm implementing because I'm hungry, literally. And I make $4,000 over the 4 days that I'm there. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Oh my God. That is just incredible.
Yeah, it was a pretty awesome experience. However, I was still in the dark night of the soul. So that didn't last very long. One of the things that I was doing was still trying to fit myself into the box because I was embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to know that I'd really lost everything. So the business that I was creating from was one that was like a thin line connection to what I used to do because I was holding on to that identity still. So that didn't work. And I think about 3 years into that.
That was training day for what came next.
Yeah, 3 years into that.
Training day.
That coach asked me to work in his business and I said no, because I felt like it was going to be giving up on my dreams, right? I was like, no, if I work for you, then I'm saying that my business isn't going to work. And then he came back later and he asked again and I finally gave in and said yes. And I think this was around 2011, 2012.
Okay.
Working inside of his business was the best thing that I could have ever done for myself because it allowed me to heal. He had so much confidence in my skill set when it came to selling. He wanted me to sell for him. So that's what I did. He gave me so much autonomy because he trusted me. And so it started to rebuild my certainty. And I think that was the key that allowed me to see something. I started learning things about myself through selling. And I found this thread that sales is a mirror. It's a transformational mirror. How you show up in money situations and sales situations will tell you a lot about yourself. And it was telling me a lot about me. And I was growing and growing and growing. So I did that for a couple of years. And then the dreaded thing that I had always avoided, I became a sales coach. And that's the beginning part of the business that I now have today.
Isn't it funny how sometimes we just really, really like totally resist something and we resist it so hard and then we actually end up doing it and it actually ends up to be the pathway to the greatness. And yet we were in full resistance of it for so long.
It was the extreme pathway. I think, my identity, my God identity is to help other people find their way. Right. I am I always tell people I am the embodiment of courage and possibility. And so this thing of sales allowed me to show people where they weren't being themselves and to have them hone in on their power. And that's where a lot of the processes and things that I teach today were born. Now, I'm no longer known as a sales coach per se, but of course I've been in sales since I was 19 years old. So it's a huge part of who I am and the strategies that I teach people. But we've gone so much deeper than that. You know, we've gone into leadership and authority and personal power, but it was all born out of that and that entire journey of me finding it for myself.
It's so incredible. Let's dial back a little bit to that event that was like $97 that you went along to. This is something that I think comes up for people a lot because it's come up for me. There's been times where an investment has been a certainty for me, but my bank balance has not, right? But I felt like I had got to be there. Like by hook or by crook, I have got to be there. Like I have got to be there. And I think, and it's always quite tragic when people don't act on that impulse.
Yeah.
Because it is, I believe it's like a really, really divine impulse. And like, can you imagine if you weren't in that room, right? Like where, like, okay, you probably would have figured it out some other way, but this was a path that led to so many different things, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's this moment of, it's like what I call a portal moment. It's a moment that you step through the portal, but the portal always like, there's like, it's a bit like the kind of the story of Greek mythology where you have to cross the river Styx, right? To get into the underworld, but you have to pay the ferryman. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, how much do you want to get to the other side? Yeah. Right. And so you got to pay the ferryman. And sometimes it's not in actual money. You just have to have an energy that you wish to exchange to get to that other side. And for me in the early days, my energy that I had to exchange, I only had energy to exchange. Like $97 would have been like, I'm out. But in the very early days, because we were really on welfare. So, but I use my time. I stopped watching television, like any and all television. I just stopped watching television and started turning my attention to filling my brain with things that would expand my consciousness. Mm-hmm. Really beginning to do that. And in a way, I felt like, I got to cross a river because of that, because of that investment in time. And I feel like that's such a powerful, potent moment. And it's like that. I feel like what I'm trying to get to in a question is, what is that energy that you felt in that moment? Like, what was that? Is that like, did you feel that knowing, like, I have to be there?
Yeah. I always get a knowing. I never know how I know. And I've had many, many more moments since then. Like that was only the first of many. And I think that was a good anchor for me because something good came out of it. I've had many where I've had a knowing and it seemed like nothing came out of it. But in hindsight, I realized it was all part of the journey, a connection to a person or people, some wisdom or knowledge that I've used even now today. So I've done that, had that knowing and had that fear. That's the thing that stops most people is the fear. Like we try to determine what the outcome could possibly be. And we can only determine what the outcome could possibly be from what we already know. And so if we use the past to inform our future, we're doomed to repeat the past. And so there's a surrender that has to happen where there's something greater on the other side of this. I love that you use the word portal because that's exactly what it is. It's the space. It's going to quantum leap you where you want to go. Now, it may not quantum leap me to the end. I didn't pay the $97 and end up with $1 million business, right? However,
it certainly took you to the next stop on the journey, right?
The next stop on the journey and the next stop on the journey. So that was $97. I've recently done that with the six-figure investment. In 2020, I'm on the phone with my next soon-to-be mentor, which I'm in year 2 of that program now. I am on the phone with him and he makes a statement that goes something sort of like this. Well, based on what you've told me and what I'm looking at here, if you didn't make any more sales or any more money, new money until October, and at this time it was like March or April, you'd still be okay. And something inside of me was like hell, I'm not going to make money until October. Like, that's not a decision that I'm going to make by not investing right now. And so I just breathed through it, because that was an invitation, not from him. That was an invitation from the divine. Trust me, I got you. And so I breathed through it. I said yes. I did a monthly payment plan. So it was a $12,000 a month investment. Within 45 days, I'd made $348,000.
Boom.
6 months later, let me make sure I'm counting right. April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 8 months later. So by November of the same year, I had $1 million month.
Shut the front door.
And
That's
so
incredible.
I've had these moments where I realize that is the invitation to next. You can't convince me of anything different. And so I just feel the fear. I have fear in one hand, courage in the other. I breathe through it. I trust that knowing that comes up. Yet I'm also okay if I wasn't looking for $1 million a month, right? I just know that this is the next step on the journey. You've got to become very adept at that. This is surrender. That's what it looks like. It's trust yourself, and it's trust the divine. There's two levels of trust that have to happen.
Wow, I love that. And I love that is that confidence and trusting the divine. And, you know, and a lot of things that I work sometimes with clients is that we work a lot on the self-love portion, because like the divine's got no chance if you don't even trust yourself. Right? How are you going to trust in something bigger than yourself when you don't even trust yourself? You know, like it's kind of like, no, let's start young Padawan down here so that we can trust ourselves, so that we can actually really, you know, have the capacity to, you know, to trust that kind of divine. And I love the journey that you're sharing with us, because this is something that my spirit team, I channel a collective consciousness called Skylar. And this is something that they talk about. They talk about this great unfoldment, like everything is folded, like the most like origamied piece, and we unfold it until it becomes this big vision of our lives, really. And, you know, from that $97 to here, to here, to here, and none of it makes any sense. And yet, in hindsight, is the only place where it will begin to make sense, and we begin to go, oh God, yeah, that led to that, and God, then I met that super awesome client that was like my client for 3 years. I was like, oh my God, and then I met this person, and it just unfolds and unfolds and unfolds, and is that massive unfoldment, the great unfoldment. And I think it's recognizing a portal moment, recognizing a pivotal moment, and it is, you are right on that knife edge of, do you do or do you not? Do you go there? Do you not go there? And that's the moment that I love that you said. I can't remember what you said, but you said you were the embodiment of courage, and what was the other piece? Possibility. Yes, that's exactly, because it's a portal of infinite possibilities, and it's that courage that we need. And that's the flipping point as well between the lower contracted states of energy that are fear-based and the expanded states of energy. And it is that, you know, all change happens at courage, but it is, do you have the courage to step through that portal, not knowing two things: who will I be on the other side of the portal, and what is waiting for me on the other side of the door of the portal that I got to step through, right? And it's like that thing of, and that's where the surrender piece comes in.
Yep.
And I love this, you know, and I feel like really in my last sort of 6 years since I've been building the business I'm in now, I just feel like I've literally just been portal hopping from like one portal to another. And it is taking that pause sometimes to breathe again, after you've done a big portal hop, and you've been like, that really was quite stretchy to stretch myself to this maybe investment or idea, or maybe you put out a program that you were like, oh my God, I don't even know how this is going to work, but you just go with it. And it's important. And what I've loved listening to your journey is the level of investment that you're willing to put in.
Yeah.
And I think this is such an under talked about thing, right? Because it's like, I've actually, I will not say it's an under talked about because people do talk about it, but it's something that I personally have struggled to talk about
Mm-hmm.
because obviously I sell something, right? So then I'm saying like, you got to invest, but like convenient for you, Joanna, because you sell stuff, right? And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with in the real truth of it. But I'm only where I am today because of the investments that I made. And I feel like with you, you've taken these leaps because of some of the investments that you've made.
I would absolutely agree with that. I think it becomes easier to talk about. One of my mentors says, instead of walk your talk, talk your walk. Only share and talk about things that you're willing to do. And so what I am doing in the world is I'm leading by example all the time. I'm constantly leaning into courage. I actually have, I don't even know where my other spray is, but I have these sprays. Oh, here it is. Courage and trust. So remember, I told you I had two things earlier that those were the two things. Trust was one and courage is the other. That's how I've gotten here. And so I'm always leaning into the edge of my comfort zone. So it makes it easy for me to share. It's still like, I get visceral reactions like, oh my gosh, people are going to judge me. So I'm not saying that that doesn't happen. But I know that there's a purpose behind why I do. And I'm not just saying it. You know, it's intent, right? I'm not saying it because I want you to invest with me. This is a key that's going to transform your life if you can embody it. And so I'm sharing it to give you it's an invitation for you. And so if I can do it from that space, as well as walk or talk my walk, right? Be the one who's leading by example and then talk about it. It's so much easier to do than if I was just like reading it in a book and saying, yeah, investing is what you're going to do. And I get an invitation to invest and then I cower, right? No, I can't do it. So it pushes me to do the next and the next and the next. Like I take my invitations that come to me seriously because I know that it's what's next for me. And if I'm leading people to build these generational businesses, these dynasties, and literally recoding their family's DNA where it comes to money and how they create and all of those things, that's a big assignment. And it's going to require big courage, which means I'm going to be jumping out of airplanes and doing all kinds of stuff. So I have jumped out of an airplane, but I'm going to be doing things that are on that level scary in my life and in my business, probably until I take my last breath.
I love that. I love that. Oh my goodness. So if somebody's listening to this, or maybe in my $1 million experiment, and we're working to this 20-step plan. It's super simple. You take $1 and then you double it 20 times and you reach actually $1 million, which is really cool. So from one, they go to 2 and 2 to 4 and so forth, right? So somebody's working through these steps and stuff. What would be some of your advice for like, because as we get into the bigger steps, the knees start knocking, the palms start sweating, and we're starting to, I'm feeling this now. So as somebody who's really a beautiful embodiment of that courage and trust, what would be your kind of best advice for somebody to really lean into that place? Maybe they've not got the track record of being held in that trust and that faith themselves.
Yeah. So I'm going to give them a 5-step process that just got downloaded.
Oh, I love it.
So the first one is to breathe.
Amen.
Connect to your breath. It is source. It's everything. Connect to breathe before you do anything. So just breathe. And then there's 3 levels of trust, right? We just kind of talked about them, but just remind yourself of this, write it somewhere, post it around your workspace, your home, your car, your computer monitor, put it as a screen saver on your phone, put the word trust, because there's 3 levels of trust, right? First, trust the process. You breathe, you trust the process. You breathe, you trust the divine. You breathe, trust yourself. You make good decisions, right? And then the last one is have the courage to stay in it. Have the courage to stay in the work, in the process, no matter what it feels like, no matter if it seems like it might be even a little bit hopeless or that it's not working, because it's always working. So breathe, trust the process,
I love that.
trust yourself,
Beautiful.
and have the courage to stay in the process.
That is so true. The courage to stay in the process, that is a biggie, I think, for a lot of people. In my world, we often say, stay in the room. Like when things get hot, stay in the room, you know, because they will, and your stuff will come up and your things will come up. And if we can just stay in the room, it's such an amazing piece of advice. But yeah, having the courage to stay in your courage, even when it's like the brain is starting to go crazy with, I don't think this is working, you know, and all of those things, right? Because that's our ego cells coming out to play. And it's such a huge thing. So one of the things that I would love to ask you about is, as our wealth starts to grow, right? The fun part, as our wealth starts to grow, we're building these epic legacy businesses that are leaving kind of legacies of light all over the planet and activating people and stuff like that. Our own financial needs are now completely taken care of, right? So house, car, going away, things like that. Like, we're not worried about the day-to-day anymore. We are fulfilled. One of the things that comes up a lot for my clients as they start to transition into these bigger money months and things like that is, well, what's next? How do we set the bigger goals? How do we do the bigger stuff, right? Like, how do we dream new dreams that are still going to have the power that they didn't, that, you know, because you said the perfect thing at the 9 to 7, I was hungry. So no wonder you made like the 4, like, but what happens when you're no longer hungry? Like, you're kind of like, life's sweet, life's good. That creates also its own problems when it comes to things like goal setting and stuff like that, because that's when we're like, well, like this. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that, because I have my own thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear yours, because like that's when we're going in, because your income is way bigger than mine. So you know, what do we do when we start getting into these bigger months? What's the drivers then, right?
So I actually did get stuck 2019, 2020, because I was doing about $500,000 a year in my business. And I didn't need anything. I mean, look where I come from. I was like, this is great. But I knew that there was more.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Yeah. I'm like, there's nothing wrong. Like, this is all incredible.
I can order takeaway whenever I want.
Right. I can make any decisions. Like, I do whatever. It was incredible. So I kind of hit this moment where I knew I desired to create $1 million business. In my mind, all I was thinking was $1 million. There was no like 10 million, multi-million. That had always been a desire of mine since I was a kid. Excuse me. I knew that I would become a millionaire through business, even as like a 17, 18-year-old kid. And so when life didn't work out that way, though, I was like, what is happening? I was supposed to be a millionaire by the time I was
not in the plan.
40. I was supposed to be a millionaire by the time I was 40. It didn't work. So I hit this moment where I couldn't figure out how to get there. It just wasn't clear. I could scratch numbers. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. How is that going to happen? Like the how. And I got an invitation to do an exercise that I now actually teach, a variation of this. And here was the question that changed everything. And then I'll share with you why it changed everything. How much would it cost you to be you 18 months from now? So when you look at how you really want to live, you got to tell the truth about your desires and own them, not just survival, right? We're not just on Maslow's hierarchy of needs of like, all my bills are paid, right? I'm always often talking about overflow, and not just any overflow, accelerated overflow. So if we're living from the overflow, how do you really want to live? What causes would you be giving into? Where would you be investing? Would you be setting up trust? And what does that look like? So if you're honest with yourself 18 months from now, what does it cost you to be you? And when I was done with it, it was like $1.2 million. And that moment, I was very clear. Here's why. Money loves purpose.
Yes. So true. So true.
Money loves purpose.
And without purpose, it stalls the engine.
Yeah. And so you don't have to go like, oh, well, now I want to build schools. You can go through everything. Where do you really want to live? How many houses do you want to have? What investments do you want to make? If you have children and a family, what are you leaving? Are there causes you want to give to? Or is there money you want to leave behind for causes that you want to give in? Are you setting up insurance policies and all of those things? And so when you start to really detail out the life you truly want to live and attach money to who you're being in the world at that level, money gets its purpose. It gets its clarity because it loves clarity as well, right? And then you get to have courage to lean into becoming that person. After I did that exercise, it was about 3 weeks that invitation that I got for that 6-figure program came.
Oh my goodness. And you just knew at that point, I gotta go for this.
Yeah. There wasn't like this is attached to it. There was just this knowing, yes. And I think people get that yes knowing, but they ignore it. They write it off.
Yes, totally. And the same thing happens as they stood in that portal. They stood in the doorway of the portal and they say, I want this greatness. I want this thing. I want this. And the portal is right there.
Yes.
And there is an entry fee to the portal. But, and part of the entry fee is really freaking scary because it's like you're going to have to take off another layer of yourself and allow a new version of you to emerge, because that's what the portal does. It literally births a new version of you coming through there. But it's so scary, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the portal is there, and then people are like, wait a minute, let me look this little gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah, it's such an incredible phenomenon for me. It's like you ask for the invitation, it shows up, the sign is here, and then you run away. It's like I don't know if you've ever seen that image of the man in the diamond mine with the pickaxe.
Yes. It's such a great image. It's such a great image. Do you know what was so fascinating in human behavior? So I'm actually doing a doctorate in metaphysical science. So part of my experiment was my hope to use some of the data from my experiment for my dissertation. And one of the things that was so fascinating was I did not expect the experiment to start before the experiment started, but by God, did I start getting really interesting human data coming in. So what I didn't expect was in 2015, I'm living on welfare. I start my online business. Little chicken nugget on the internet, trying to do her thing, and believing that there was a secret club where everybody that made 6 figures went, and they didn't tell anyone the good stuff. These were the thoughts that I was having back then. And so I was like, when I had this download for the $1 million experiment, which was like beyond crazy idea, right? The idea was to offer a year-long container for just $25. And they would get weekly lab notes. They would get this early access to this podcast. They would get, support in a community of everybody doing the same. They would get a 20-step $1 million plan and access to my $1 million book. So it was like, the value was like insane. So part of me, when I received that download, and then on top of that, we did an affiliate program as well of 50%. So it was like really crazy, right? But when I got that download to do it and at that price, and I had to really take some time out and sit with myself that could I really hold this energy at that price and feel good about that, because I was already selling programs at like $2,000, $3,000 things, and my coaching and everything, which was, a 5-figure investment for some of my packages. So I was just kind of like, why am I, this is weird kind of download to get, but I went with it. And what kept me going in the vision was 2015 Joanna, right? She's stony broke. She had to make a little thought like, I'm like, you're fancy with your $97, because I had to think about my $25, right? Like I'm gonna let me think about that. Can we scrape that together for this, right? So I was so excited for 2015 Joanna, because I was just like, man, is somebody like, this was what I prayed for when I was at 2015, right? I was like, if I could just get my hands on some quality training, am I going to be okay up in this, deal here? So I was like, so excited. What I did not expect was the great public of the internet. So I expected everybody would behave like 2015 Joanna and be like, what? Are you kidding me? $25, I'm in. No. There was 5 categories of people. Yes, category 1 was filled with like, holy moly, I have just won the lottery. Thank you very much. I am in. Don't even need to think about it. I am in. Most of those people were my people already, and people that were been in my world for a long time. They were like, the webinar for announcing this launch was hilarious. The comments, we actually kept the comments because they were like, take my money. It was so fun. It was so fun. But then we had the people who jumped in. Then we had the people that were like, what's wrong with it? Why is it only $25? Right? Totally did not expect those people at all. So I was like, oh, okay. Then we had the people who were like, I'm just going to wait. And these were people, some of these people were in my world, but they were like stood on the sidelines for months, because we had like a really, really long run up to the 1st of January. We did a soft launch on the 20th of August and a proper launch on the 1st of September. So we had like this massive long window of people to join. So the gift horse, the people standing on the sidelines, that was like really, really surprising. Again, and then there was this other category of people who were like outright hostile, like full on hostile.
Oh my gosh.
Like it was so crazy. And they were like, I was accused of running a pyramid scheme. I was just like, yeah, where is this coming from? I remember one guy wrote this big long spiel about how I was basically running, like he didn't know me, he wasn't from my community or anything. And it was on this woman's post, and this woman had tagged me in the post and said, hey, I'm sharing my mentor's like experiment is insane. The value in this is like, honestly, jump on this. This is going to be so good. And then this guy wrote this big long spiel all about me, like having never met me, doesn't know anything about me. The woman is literally saying, this is my mentor. And he's like literally saying, I'm not even a real person on the internet, because he can't find that much of me on Google. I'm like, what? And I'm like, okay. So I answer him back, right? So now he can see it is my experiment. I'm like, hey, by the way, this is my experiment. Like I will assure you that I'm a real lady on the internet, and it's like, he then tells me I'm running a pyramid scheme. I'm like, no, the definition of a pyramid scheme is this has an affiliate program. It's quite different. Thank you very much. And then I'm like, why am I even? That's like, I'm like, in the end, I was like, listen, dude, it's $25. If you don't want to be in, that's cool. But like, yeah, like what is going on here, And what was so incredible was how many people that I had seen, people that were in my community, some of them that maybe hadn't bought, but they'd been on, free master classes, things like that, that came to this portal moment of the $1 million experiment that literally offered them $1 million plan. Like the plan alone, never mind it was a year-long container, never mind all the other stuff. The plan alone was worth the $25, right? To have your mind blown by that simple plan. And they were just like, they questioned the portal, and there was the courage that was lacking to say, okay, well, let me just jump in here for that. And it was so fascinating to me of how human behavior kind of unfolded for it. And then the people that obviously jumped in, the day of our actual first call that we did, it just exploded. Like just went absolutely bananas. And it was so interesting at how people question like what I thought was like the best deal on the internet.
Yeah, I think society as a whole is skeptical where money is concerned.
Yes.
It's only those people who can pull out of this like massive swinging pendulum that we're all in, this paradigm that we've all bought into, where we've decided that fast money is bad, and that, you know, you can't spend $25 and make $1 million. It's not possible, right? This is the massive pendulum that everybody's bought into. You must work your skin off the bones for most of your life to become a millionaire if you're an ordinary person. If you're willing to suspend disbelief and let that go and plug into a different paradigm, anchor in new beliefs, everything is possible. But as long as you're plugged into that, so that had to show up, I believe.
Completely. It was so fascinating. I mean, I loved every moment. I was literally like this with my popcorn. It was so fascinating.
You got to experience that because you got to see it all. This is the world we live in. Right in front of you. There's a reason why only 3% of business owners make it to $1 million, right? There's a reason why only what is it? I think it's 40%, and actually it's less than that, 25% of businesses ever cross 6 figures, right? And only 50% of businesses, and this is in the United States, only ever make more than $25,000 a year. That's insane. But we've all bought into this. It can't be that easy. And I'm like, let's shift that. It gets to be easy.
Yes, it gets to be easy. That's one of my favorite mantras. It gets to be easy. Let's back up to the easy money. You said something there about easy money. It was like, we're not allowed to earn easy money. Or money, easy money is not good money or something like that. Like, that's juicy. Like you can feel the energy of that, of like, I can definitely see where I can almost see in the timeline of like parental judgments of easy money, like it's somehow sort of skeevy, get rich quick scheme, but these kind of things, right? Isn't it? It's kind of a fun, to explore that in a way, because like, what are our attachments? What are our thoughts too? Because right there, that could be one of the places where we're literally going, no, thank you. No easy money today, please.
Yes. Like, bring me all the easy money. The easier, the better. Like it comes while I'm sleeping. Thank you. More, please. Like that's the life that I'm living in. We even have a saying, you said, get rich quick scheme. So I use that in my marketing. I'm like, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a get rich quick strategy. I'm showing people how to collapse timelines and make money faster than they've ever made before. And this is part of the work that needs to be done, is to let go of these old beliefs and paradigms that have been anchored, by family. But what I'm seeing, it's mostly society. Right?
Yes,
society.
I think so. It's like, it's what I call it is that way because it's that way. But no one's ever said, well, why is it that way? It's no, but don't ask, because it's that way because it's that way.
Right.
That was my first.
Right. It can't possibly be this other way. Something's going on over there. It's got to be a pyramid scheme. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. I'm like, but what if it wasn't? What if this was the way it was always meant to be? But you just have the veil over your eyes. you've been asleep. Now it's time to wake up. You can create whatever you want, however fast you desire.
Oh my God, I love that. That is it. That is it. Mic drop. That's it, right? What if it, playing in the field of positive what ifs,
Yes.
right? Because we do love as a human race to hang out in that field of negative what ifs. But you know what? It's so much more fun to play in the field of positive what ifs. I love that. Shameca, oh my God, we could literally talk the whole evening through, but can you tell people where they can find you if they are so inspired? I know that they're going to be so inspired by this episode, but if they want to find you quickly, they cannot even wait to read the show notes. Where is your favorite place to hang on the internet?
Absolutely. So I'm about to tell my age again. Hang out on Facebook.
Me too.
Hang out on Facebook. That is where I live and play and love on people. So you can find me on Facebook just by looking me up at Shameca Tankerson. I know, Joanna, you're going to put some links so that people...
Absolutely. We'll make it super easy for everyone.
I am on Instagram and some other places. I'm sparingly over there. If you really want to be in my world and immersed in my shenanigans, Facebook is where you hang out with me.
Oh my God, amazing. Thank you so much. I have loved this conversation. I'm really just savoring some of the most amazing nuggets from this. So beautiful to walk with you on this journey and to hear your story and how inspiring it is, and how inspiring it is that we can pick ourselves up also from a giant blow, you know, of 2008. That's a huge thing, right? Because some people are like, okay, well, I'm not just going to write off the rest of my life. And that's, you know, and for me, and I know just from the little bit of knowing you in this last hour, is that wasn't an option for either of us.
No. Wasn't an option. I didn't know how long it was going to take, but I was committed. That was the thing.
Me too. I was like, by hook or by crook, I will get out of this in some way, shape, or form. Absolutely. It was just not an option to be in that place forever. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and I cannot wait for people to connect with you out on the interwebs.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.